Brittney Griner pled guilty today in Russia to drug charges. I don't know what the implications of that are for the WNBA star. But really, it's because the Russian authorities are using her as a pawn in the tension between the United States and Russia over Russia's invasion of Ukraine and subsequent war in Ukraine. But so she's a political prisoner because they found empty cartridges in her luggage that contained cannabis oil, and they're using that as a way, or the detention of her as a way to, increase hostilities and or leverage with the United States. But she's been in detention for a really, really long time, and NBA stars like Carmelo Anthony and others have been speaking out about her detention. Here is Brittney Griner's wife calling out Biden for the inaction because her wife has been in prison for so long, and obviously this is an incredibly scary situation.
I was told, just we're going to try and reserve, we're going to try and handle this behind scenes and, let's not raise her value and, stay quiet. And, I did that. And respectfully, we're over 140 days at this point. That does not work. And so I will not be quiet anymore. I will find that balance of, harm versus help in pushing our government to do everything that's possible, because being quiet, they are not moving. They are not doing anything. And so my wife is struggling, and we have to help her.
Sherelle, a lot of us feel the same way that you do. We all want her home sooner rather than later. Before you go, have you heard from the White House since the letter was delivered to President Biden? In her letter, she says the first time she voted was in 2020, and that vote was for President Biden. Have you heard from him?
I still have not heard from him, and honestly, it's very disheartening.
How? This is an incredibly high-profile case, just from his own political perspective. Brittney Griner is a famous WNBA player. She competed in the Olympics for the United States. How do you not cover your bases and your own ass from just a political perspective and reach out to her wife? Make a phone call. He's too busy making calls with Mitch McConnell, trying to make a deal where he gets, fairy dust back from Mitch McConnell to put an anti-abortion judge on and appointing him to a federal appointment that lasts a lifetime in the middle of Roe being overturned. He's too busy sitting beside Nancy Pelosi, maybe taking a nap as she helps write fundraising emails.
Too busy covering for IDF murders of journalists.
How does this fall through the cracks? The idea that her wife, I want to get her name. What is it? I can't hear you.
Sherelle.
Okay, Sherelle. The idea that Sherelle waited this long to even speak out about this is I would not have that patience.
Well,
I'd be up in arms every day.
Yeah, that's the thing here is now we have two instances of basketball players, first the NBA with the George Floyd protests, and this time with the WNBA and Brittney Griner, where their initial inclination is to speak out, and they are told not to do that. And that was the case with Griner. It was don't make too many waves. We got this. And of course they don't. They don't got this. And so they shouldn't be trustworthy. And this should be a lesson for any sort of, whether you're in professional sports or any sort of area where you have a social justice platform, to not trust these people.
Also, no, I think they don't want to raise her value. I understand that line of thinking for someone who is just who isn't in the public eye, but do they not think that Russia knows exactly who they have? That's probably why they're doing this. That's probably why they're dragging this out, to make her, an example. This isn't a person that they're unfamiliar with. There is no, keep this on the DL here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, to Matt's point, like most things, or rather like most important things, Democrats are going to have to be shamed into doing something about this, basically anything about it. And then once they've been appropriately shamed to the point where they are forced to do something, then they'll take responsibility and pretend like they had, they just did it through the goodness of their own heart. But I mean, you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for that as like a social justice advocate, or as anyone who wants nice things in America to happen, to just be prepared to shame the shit out of Democrats and the media until they eventually are willing to pretend like it was their idea.
Yeah, if they're talking about themselves as your partner before they've actually delivered on what you're partnering with them for, you need to be really wary.
Yeah.
Also, we should point out why she's even over there in the first place, playing for the league over there, because I believe she gets paid something like $200K a season. Compare that to like and she's like a big name in the WNBA. Compare that to like a low-level NBA player who makes millions, I'm sure. I mean, it's pretty. That's another issue this brings up too.
The instincts of the Biden administration, in order to cower from any headline, like any headline that they could perceive as painting them in a negative light, or any sort of pressure outside of like the strength of their diplomatic processes or internal negotiations, is mind-boggling. That's what happens when you're the president. He's supposed to be using the bully pulpit and his ability with the immense platform that he has to sell his agenda, whatever the case may be. And like, I don't know what the status of the negotiations are with the United States basically backing Ukraine in some sort of negotiation with Russia and peace deals, and if that has anything to do with it. But like, as you mentioned, Matt, this is already a story that has commanded people's attention. And the fact that he didn't even do behind the scenes due diligence by speaking and reaching out to her wife totally undercuts the fact that this is some sort of strategic move. It's just ambivalence and cowardice.
Oh, it's definitely apathy, but I think people on the outside who are, conditioned to give the Democratic Party and their president a lot of, I don't know what you call it, a lot of just like leeway when it comes to this sort of thing, are willing to believe that any decision like this is strategic. And that's just because, it's very easy to imagine Republicans throwing a fit about, Biden talking to Russia and he's showing weakness, et cetera, et cetera. And that's certainly not why they actually do it. But it's definitely a good excuse for people who like to believe that they're always playing like 8-dimensional chess, or who watch too much West Wing.
Yeah. Jules Winfield. If he calls after Sherelle, he'd need to call the family of every person's family who has someone in custody in Russia and other countries we have diplomatic relations with. Otherwise, on Fox, they'll say he's only willing to help leftists, because from the right's point of view, anyone gay or black is leftist. Biden administration is terrified of right media. It's
cool,
disgusting.
do it. They don't care. Like, we're the ones who Biden should be worried about upsetting.
And honestly, I don't even think they would attack him about this.
It would be a fart in the bathtub.
Yeah. And I just don't necessarily agree that Democrats are terrified of right media. I think that sort of makes sense if you don't realize that the Republicans don't vote for Democrats. But for Democrats who want to believe that the Republicans are always on the table, the idea that they're going to be demonized by the right for things that they did versus things that they did not do, which they're going to be demonized for anyway, like, sounds like a really big deal. Like, what if that one suburban mom who was about to vote for Biden the next election, is turned off by him getting Brittney Griner out of Russian jail? What if that happens? And it's just like, they certainly aren't making that calculation, but it creates a very compelling narrative for some people who are, trying to run the numbers in their head.
Right. But also, if that suburban mom is watching right-wing media of any kind, from Fox News to Breitbart to Daily Wire to Gateway Pundit, they're not voting for Biden. Like, the attainable suburban white mom voter, to the extent that there is one, is someone who's just like sort of completely cut off from this whole bubble to begin with. They're not taking in political media.
I agree. And I think we'll really be able to tell like how little Biden cares about the situation if and when he appoints Kamala Harris to be the czar of this, of getting Brittney Griner out of prison. Because that's like the Biden administration's telltale sign of like not really being into something, putting Kamala Harris in charge of it.
I know, right? They really just like, to my great amusement, give her the scut jobs.